Going to get the GPS sounds over it though.
Oh, that's right. Makes it authentic.
Makes it, you can't have your dodgy music on. Can't do your dodgy music.
Gotta have some background.
Yeah, but then I'll have to edit it.
And put your Mumford & Sons on.
That's it, yeah. Nothing like Mumford & Sons.
I'll have to give it a go.
You will.
Give it a listen, see what it's like.
Yeah.
Is it the old boys chanting to some acoustic guitar or something?
Turn right,
acoustic
then
guitar.
turn right. Turn right, then turn left.
This wouldn't be an exit.
No. Alright, I think we're good to go. Alright, so what I thought would be a great idea, we're going to be in the car for a lot of hours as we travel from Alabama to Miami.
Mm-hmm.
Thought it'd be a great idea to have a chat,
Continue en route.
which we will do, to have a chat about what you do, why you're doing what you do, and what you're doing over here in the States.
Alright.
Okay, so do you want to tell me who you are and what you do so we can tell everybody else? I know, but other people wouldn't know.
Gotcha. Alright, well, I'm Jake Parsons, racing driver competing internationally from Sydney, Australia, and I'm 21. So that's kind of the brief rundown.
That's a brief rundown of who you are.
Yeah.
So you're racing here in the States in Pro Mazda?
Yes.
Yep. So for you, why Pro Mazda?
Well, Pro Mazda is part of the Road to Indy series, which is a American ladder system with IndyCar being at the top. So it's a nice structured progressive system for drivers to go through to reach a professional category being IndyCar. And we, in the last few years, have been racing in Asia, and previous to that was Australia. So we just went to race in the appropriate categories at the time for me to go and learn and create a solid base. And now we're at a point where Pro Mazda makes the most sense to go into as a category for me due to the car's performance level and things. It's a little bit of a step up from what I have driven, but it's, I guess, similar enough to be the transition category to go over from Asia into the US now.
So again, why the US? If we think about racing globally, which is obviously what you've been doing, what makes the States the place to be?
Well, I think Europe has always been the place to go as a driver to make a career. It's definitely like at least the traditional region taking the Formula One path that a lot of drivers go through. And now America's sort of the American scene of racing is increasing. Things like the Road to Indy are coming about, and IndyCar is the top Formula series in North America. So it's becoming more of a global appeal, combined with Champ Car in, forget the year exactly, in the 2000s, and now has got road courses, street circuits, ovals, and it's becoming a pretty cool series. So for me, it's been an attractive, goal to head towards IndyCar. So that's why I've picked going over to this side of the world. And the Road to Indy series is a nice structured way to get there now that we're at a point having gained experience in categories here and there. In 2014 we did 3 categories at once, bits and pieces, being Formula Ford, Formula BMW Championship and Formula Masters, and actually I did an F3 test as well. And that was all just gaining good experience, and now we are committing to a full championship over in the ladder program.
So do you think the States as a whole on motorsports is growing more so than Europe?
I think Europe's quite saturated and very disjointed at the moment. Like F4 is a new category that's come about globally, which is proving to be quite successul. However, it's a bit sort of choppy and less structured in Europe particularly, and so it's quite appealing, I guess, for drivers trying to plot their path to, depending on their experience level can sort of pick what fits for them as far as categories go in the ladder system, and then they have a clear trajectory of where they want to go. And I'm already in amongst teams for Indy Lights, in amongst teams for IndyCar, and we're all in a similar, like we'll all be going to St. Pete to race, so you're in front of the right people to keep that progression going.
Awesome. So I think from what most people would want to know, you've talked about obviously the road to Indy and getting into Indy cars, which would, I assume, be mid-range objectives for you.
Mm-hmm.
What's long term?
Yeah, so I guess right now I've come through having started racing started testing cars in 2012 in some Skip Barber stuff, and progressed through the entry levels of Formula Ford and things into BMW, Formula Masters, some F3 testing, and now sitting in kind of like the middle of the range. I guess I can sort of see now what's the connected professional categories near to where I'm at, and I'd say the first goal for me would be to reach IndyCar through the Road to Indy that I spoke about. So I say long-term goals would be IndyCar. I'd like to get established there as a professional driver, and then I would like to branch out into maybe something like WEC, the World Endurance Series, or Super Formula in Japan. I think both of those categories are awesome. As far as the cars go, and WEC is always pushing the boundaries of technology, which is awesome. And then another category would be Formula E, which is growing year by year, I guess, and they're sort of in the early stages of their series. So right now it's a bit of a development process, I guess, but in 5 years I think it could be a very cool category. And it's definitely an aspect of racing that I really like, which is the innovation side and the technology. So I think Formula E really appeals to me in the future, probably as like a longer term proposition than IndyCar. That would be in the nearer future, I would say. And then WEC as well, being like things like hybrid cars going into that, and definitely pushing the boundaries as far as technology and racing goes. So I think you could say IndyCar in hopefully 3 years in an ideal world, and I think that's realistic given the trajectory that we're on, and as I said, the path that we're taking on the road to Indy. And then after that I'd like to branch into a more global series, maybe something like Formula E or WEC or something like that.
Okay. And for us non-initiated into the racing community, what makes what you've chosen to do different to what everybody else does?
I think often people as drivers will follow the traditional path, so they'll go through go-karting, then
which is where you started.
That's where I started as well. It's where most drivers will start, and then they'll just pick the most commonly tread path, I guess. So whatever they see as most people are going into this category, so I'll do that one next. And so for what I found was the best was just to pick the categories that would give you the experience and the learning that you need for your career. So that's why in 2013 I was finishing high school and did some state Formula Ford, which worked really well because it was all local stuff. And then 2014 I just did a little bit of Formula Ford, and then I started doing some Formula BMW, which was like the next level of technology, sequential gearbox, wings and slicks, carbon body car. And then after that went to Formula Masters, which was faster and basically an upgraded version. And by the end of the year I then tested F3. So from Formula 4 to F3 over the course of the year, not doing the whole Formula Ford Championship or the whole Masters Championship, but taking bits and pieces of what I wanted to learn and speeding up the progression that way. And we started in Formula Ford and ended testing Formula 3 and being on the level to race in cars on that level. So I think that's been the best thing that I've done, and something that's a bit different from the traditional path. That's exciting.
Crap. Yeah.
Oh,
so his tyre just blew?
You need to bleep that out. That was
that
exciting.
could have been interesting. So your trajectory over the last 2 years has leapfrogged. You okay? the racing car driver bit.
I'm good. I just didn't mean to swear. So
We're going to keep that bit in.
no, don't do that.
So your trajectory over the last 2 years has been a massive learning curve.
Yeah.
However, it's taken 2 years. What would that normal trajectory take for someone who's stuck to the normal path?
Well, I would say the general thing is people would be doing Formula Ford. People have done Formula Ford for 2 years, for a full season, at least 2 years, and then would do some F4. And then from F4, hoping after a year or two to go into F3. So that could take from Formula Ford to F3 could take you, I would say on average, maybe from what I've seen, like 4 years.
Yep.
And I did state Formula Ford in 2013, a little bit then in the following year, but then by the end of that year I was testing F3 by that point, just because we transitioned into cars that progressed me there for when I needed it, rather than just locking into a championship for a whole year, lock into this one for a whole year. It was more just like, I don't know, like a buffet, you just pick and choose what you want.
Do you think that's hurt your development in any way?
I don't think it's been any disadvantage really, because out of 2014 we still committed to a championship, which was the Asia Cup. It was the Formula BMW car, and it was only 3 rounds of a series, but it was still a complete series. I got to take a resume item out of that, if you like, which was...
And like, let people know, how did you go?
I won the championship, so that's nice to then take with me further on. So it was a condensed championship, which was perfect for what we needed. And I think it's just been full of positives to take.
Okay. And from the official perspective, those who run the organisations, who run traditional racing strategies, did you get any negative feedback from those people? I know Australia can be a little bit restrictive on their drivers going overseas.
Yeah, I think it's common for drivers to, when they join a team, just to be with them the whole season and just have everything singularly focused on just that series. But so I understand that when I said I'll be doing these races, but I'm then going overseas to do some of these races as well, I understand why people were saying you shouldn't do that, because it's not normal, I guess, in the way that how can you, from their point of view, how can you get better if you're not in the car doing lap after lap after lap?
Yeah.
But for what I was using it for, it worked well to just be learning through the ranks, basically, because that's what these younger series are for. These entry level to junior series are, you're there to learn. So I guess it worked well from a progression point of view, and I think it was good to just say, I know this is what people normally do, but this is what I want to do for this reason, and they understood the reason. And I think it's made me a more rounded driver because of that. So not just a Formula Ford driver or a Formula BMW driver, but a more rounded driver, and the experience I've been able to get from those categories has enabled me to make faster steps. And even the following year, 2015, from that point, I then got to do an R8 race. It was like my first GT race, and it was a pretty steep learning curve to jump straight into a race, but from that I learned skills like the braking was a massive factor in that. So I then brought that skill that I learned back into Formula Masters, and my braking just increased a lot. Like my skills of braking were massively improved. So I think it might seem weird to jump around into different series to people, but when you're here to learn and develop your skills, then long term it makes more sense, I would say.
Okay. So, and obviously from a traditional perspective, there's a reason for that structured following everybody else's path, and you've chosen to, as you say, cherry pick the good bits that work for you. What's enabled you to do that? I mean, I'm sure other people have thought about doing it but chose not to do it, or have people done it? Do you know of other drivers that did choose to cherry pick?
I mean, going into things like racing in Asia, for example, I then hear that there have been other drivers over there doing that. Daniel Ricciardo was racing over in Asia in Formula BMW, but no one really, I guess maybe it's not that commonly known, so then no one gives it credit because they don't think it's really paid off for anyone. But then after I've gone and experienced it, I then see like Matthew Brabham tested in Asia in Formula BMW even. Ricciardo was there doing that. I think he might have won the championship or come second when he did it. So now I can see that it's actually paid off for a lot of successful drivers to go and do some things that maybe people weren't even aware of, that they went over to different areas to drive cars. But I'm seeing now that I'm starting to do it, that it's not unheard of, but it's probably not as common. However, the people that have done it have really gotten good rewards from it.
So it's got a huge success rate, just not a very publicised success rate.
Yeah, and I think Australia in particular, it's quite far away from a lot of other places, so you don't, when someone
far
leaves,
away from everywhere.
There you go. So you don't hear much about people going and doing other things, because I guess Australian racing has got Australian drivers, and it's all very like all in that area, I guess. So you don't get a whole lot of interaction with what other series are around. And I think recently, or probably now with the internet and social media and stuff, you can start to hear about them more and more. But back when people had done it previously, it was probably even harder to hear about what was happening outside of the country.
So for you, what gave you the confidence to do that? To think outside the box, to move outside the traditionally well-trodden path and go, actually, I'm going to do it different?
I think having that bigger perspective over where this is where I am now, but where do I want to be, has allowed me to have a different view on the categories I'm doing and why I'm doing them. And I think working with the Smart Mind Institute has been really good to enable me to see, like, okay, this is what's maybe the normal way to improve yourself as a driver, but I could be more efficient if I wanted to reach this end goal by taking these steps. So I guess I viewed it as rather than I want to win this championship so then I can go into that championship and then win that one to the next one, it was more, and I think it's more cost effective too, to just, like, if I went to do Formula Ford and then did F3 testing by the end of the year, then I've not done seasons worth of championships. It's more cost effective, time effective to do that stuff.
So you've managed your budget as well as your time, and your return on investment has been a better return on investment.
Yeah, for me it's worked well, the path that I've chosen, and I'm sure for other people a different path would work better for them, but not necessarily to just like do the traditional path. You've got to pick what's right for you.
Okay, so that's in a nutshell you, the athlete. What about you, the person? What do you like to do? What's the Jake Parsons non-racing car driver?
Right. Well, I think I'm always quite interested in the future and where things are headed, particularly as far as technology goes. That's why I'm also interested in that part of driving as well, the innovation side of things. Probably when I was a kid, I watched Speed Racer a lot.
Okay.
So that was the future of racing in some ways, just having that view. So I think that's probably stuck and resonated a little bit. So that's just a general thing that I'm always excited by, things like SpaceX or even Tesla with the electric programs in their cars. But I'm also a big music fan, so I'm following all the music producers and DJs and stuff, and definitely get inspired a lot by a lot of what they're doing. People like Skrillex have been an idol for me, with the mentality of, I guess, just doing what you enjoy doing and not necessarily following the traditional path, which fits well with what I've chosen to do in my own career.
Yeah.
So that's been cool. A lot of other DJs like Nitro Fun, Monomyth, Porter Robinson. It's all been cool to watch their journeys as well and kind of experience their world.
Yeah.
It's been awesome. So
finding like-minded people who are not necessarily in your industry has still been motivating and mentoring to you.
yeah, exactly. And I think now being able to follow these people on social media in particular, or YouTube videos, I can kind of get inspired to do what I do by watching them do what they love to do as well, which is awesome.
Yeah. That's really, really cool. So again, living here in the States, what's been the biggest changes for you?
Probably driving.
Being an Aussie boy.
I'd say driving on the right side of the road has been pretty hard. Well, Indy's been a cold place. It's been snowing every week, so there's a bit of an adjustment that's been needed to happen there. But now I'm actually really liking it, and I've got a bit of a craving to go skiing.
Right.
But,
so a bit of assimilation to your environment.
Yes, I feel like I've assimilated pretty well. Yeah, it actually hasn't been too hard. I think having been in Asia and stuff quite frequently over the last year or so, which is a pretty different culture, to then come into the US, it feels pretty seamless going from Australia to the US. So I actually haven't found it being too much of a challenge. It's just cool to go to a new area.
Yeah. So getting a bit of an idea of who you are, what makes you tick as an individual, and obviously the innovation and thinking a little bit outside the box is a common theme.
Yeah.
Working on the mental aspect of you as an individual, what difference has that made, not only to you as an athlete, but to you as a person?
I think I've really been able to understand what makes me work, and I'm able to understand myself better to set my environment up the right way, to be more comfortable, more focused at a race weekend. But then also understanding that still applies when I'm at home as well, and setting up your general life to be more tailored to work for you has been good. So I think just understanding the things that I need to include in my day-to-day life, having that personal time, that downtime when you're so busy training, like physical training every day, mental coaching, you're organizing and emailing all the time, trying to keep your career on track. It's then important to give yourself that time for you.